Hamilton is right up behind Raikkonen and goes for it down the outside of the bus stop. Now Raikkonen's back in front and Hamilton's going to attack him. He goes on the inside. Raikkonen tried to play it cool, but it went wrong for him. Amazing action here at Spa-Francorchamps. That's Raikkonen. Lewis Hamilton comes through. He wins the Belgian Grand Prix.
Fantastic, said the fans. Unfair, said the FIA. And Lewis Hamilton was just one of many who left the Belgian Grand Prix last Sunday disillusioned and confused.
I've been in Formula One a long time, and you know, we deal with each and every thing that comes along in the most professional way possible, and we are leaving here totally focused on Monza.
But what the deluge had delivered for Hamilton in Spa, it swept away for him in qualifying yesterday. The master of the wet is adrift in 15th position for the Italian Grand Prix. Instead, the heaven-sent opportunity was grabbed by another exciting young talent. After the rather sour events that followed Spa, it was good to be reminded yesterday of the sort of exhilaration this sport can still bring. That celebration yesterday came from 21-year-old Sebastian Vettel, who's become the youngest driver in the history of Formula One to take a pole position, and the first for his Toro Rosso team. The downside of yesterday was Lewis Hamilton failing to make it through to Q3 for the first time in his Formula One career, and he'll start this Italian Grand Prix from a distant 15th on the grid. But Mark, it's such a mixed up grid, and this rain is still with us. Anything could still happen this afternoon.
It really could. I think there's a high possibility if it does rain and we got the conditions we had yesterday that we may well see a Toro Rosso, maybe with Vettel or Bourdais at the wheel, who could win this Grand Prix. But you know, it's very interesting to watch these young guys coming through. They're fearless. They've got guys like the 21-year-old Vettel who are World Championship material.
And the actual conditions we've got at the moment is showery. It's sort of intermediate sort of conditions.
Just what you don't want. If you go out and you look at the circuit now as a Grand Prix driver, you're thinking, what tyres should I run? Should I gamble on something? You're also thinking that the risk element is very high. So for Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen, there could be a lot of bother for them trying to come through the pack.
And it was a disastrous tyre choice for Lewis yesterday. We'll try to explain exactly why during the course of our build-up. And we'll also pay tribute to the extraordinary progress of Toro Rosso, who not only have Sebastian Vettel on pole position, but also have Sebastian Bourdais, his teammate, on row 2 for this Italian Grand Prix. Well, we have to start with the World Championship leader, from the euphoria of apparently having won one of the great Grand Prix at Spa last weekend to the despair of having that victory snatched away in a controversial decision by the stewards. As Ted Kravitz reports, McLaren's bad times and bad week just seems to have continued all the way here to Monza.
If there's one thing McLaren hate, it's a dirty garage floor. So it just summed up their luck that when the drains flooded here on Friday, it all streamed into their pit. It's been one of the worst weeks in the team's history. 7 days ago, Lewis Hamilton, having qualified on pole for the Belgian Grand Prix, spins and loses the lead. 40 laps later, he gains it back, but only by cutting the corner. Hamilton gets good drive onto the straight, and despite a double blocking move by Raikkonen, the McLaren takes the lead. Team asked race director Charlie Whiting on the radio if the move was okay. Charlie says yes, that should be okay.
We wanted to make sure that we've complied to the regulation and let Kimi back into the lead and then taken the lead again, and the answer was yes. But it's for the stewards to decide, and hopefully they will, looking at the facts, they'll come to the same conclusion.
No such luck. FIA advisor Alan Donnelly and the stewards listened to the drivers, but ultimately the stewards decide Lewis did not give enough advantage back to Raikkonen and demote him to third. Hamilton makes a little protest of his own by leaving the track wearing the Bridgestone winner's cap rather than that of his contracted sponsors. Despite widespread sympathy for his demotion in the UK, support for Hamilton in the Monza paddock has been thin on the ground.
If Lewis make the chicane, he will never pass Kimi in the first corner.
Even though Kimi was in trouble with his tyres because it was raining?
No, because it's a so small straight.
It's common knowledge and it's discussed over and over in the meetings. You simply should not gain an advantage, and that's as easy as it is.
He needs to step down to do the chicane properly, like Kimi, and next 2 or 3 corners try to overtake or next lap, but I agree with the steward this time. Sometimes not, but this time yes.
He should have waited 1 corner later and then passed him, and then everything would have been fine and he would have won the race.
Rain in Monza qualifying gives McLaren the chance to take advantage of Ferrari's woeful wet weather performance. But in the second session, when it matters least and for no apparent gain, McLaren try out the intermediate tyres.
Ready, 4 and 4.
Understood, Lewis. Just have to keep going. We need to set a time.
It's too late. Lewis ends up 15th on the grid. It's been a week of bad luck and bad judgment. McLaren can only hope it won't end up costing them another World Championship.
Well, it's easy to forget that it's actually been 9 years, Sir Jackie, since McLaren last won a championship. How vital is it for them to get one this year?
Oh, pretty important. They wouldn't want to have a 10-year window without winning the championship. They've got a very good chance to do it, but it's a tough environment to do it in right now.
What's going to be the key for today, managing these difficult conditions?
Well, if it rains, like I rather hope it will, because it'll be a more exciting race for everyone, I think actually the McLaren is an easier car to drive in the rain than Ferrari. I think we've seen that now. Whether it's the throttle application that's more friendly, whether it's the torque of the engine that's more gentle, but it's definitely true that both Kovalainen and Lewis Hamilton seem to be able to handle the wet conditions better than Raikkonen or Massa, as has been seen in these wet conditions. So I think it's a more friendly car. It's not a challenge, it's an invitation, and I think therefore they have the edge if it's really a wet race.
Okay, we look forward to it. Sir Jackie, thanks very much.
Mark, we discussed all the issues of Spa in some detail in our build-up to qualifying yesterday and reached what sort of conclusions? That Lewis, maybe has a case to answer. It was a racing incident, but there is such confusion and inconsistency in the sport at the moment.
I think there is. I think there's a lot of vagueness, a lot of grey areas. There seems to be inconsistent penalties being handed out. It's very difficult for us in the sport to look at things what go on the circuit, even in different formulas, and then see different penalties being given out. Yes, okay, the Lewis Hamilton situation is one what we don't agree with in some ways, but then we don't agree also with the way the penalty was handed out and the amount of time it took to get there. You know, I'm very much that we should be having a referee situation. They give a red card and that's the end of it, and let's all go home knowing what the result is.
We will talk about it some more, I'm sure, during the course of the build-up to the race. The FIA President Max Mosley is here in the paddock this weekend for only his second Grand Prix of the season. We wanted to put precisely these issues to Max, but an interview wasn't forthcoming, but we will keep trying on your behalf. Well, even despite that penalty that was imposed on Lewis after the result in Spa, he still has a 2-point lead in that Drivers' Championship over Felipe Massa. But will Hamilton leave Monza as the World Championship leader still? That's the big question. Lewis starts this afternoon from 15th, Massa from 6th. And James Allen can take us through all the details of yesterday's dramatic qualifying.
Monza is the Ferrari heartland, but it wasn't the red cars which shone yesterday in qualifying. Toro Rosso is based on the old Minardi team. They've still got only 168 employees down in Faenza, about 20% of the top teams. But in Sebastian Vettel, they've got a superstar. It wasn't Hurricane Ike, but the stormy weather caused havoc with qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix and laid waste to any victory hopes Lewis Hamilton might have had. Sebastian Vettel didn't luck into his pole position here. He conquered the conditions and banged in plenty of fast laps. He was fastest in Quali 2 and Quali 3. He becomes the youngest ever pole sitter at 21 years of age. Meanwhile, Heikki Kovalainen also excelled throughout the qualifying session in the McLaren. He took second place on the grid, but teammate Lewis Hamilton blew it in the second part of qualifying. He tried intermediates on an outlap. It didn't work out for him. He then had a long delay during which his brakes glazed over. He went out again and couldn't get either brake or tyre temperature. He wound up 15th on the grid, 1 place behind Kimi Raikkonen, who will not make his life easy in the Grand Prix. Title contender Felipe Massa had a great chance to put one over on Hamilton, but he could manage only 6th on the grid. Has he gone for a one-stop strategy? He'll certainly be a factor in the race today. Mark Webber was a hero at the end of qualifying, pulling out a heroic lap to grab 3rd place on the grid. It's an extraordinary lineup for the Italian Grand Prix. He's the one, Sebastian Vettel, the youngest ever pole sitter. This is his 22nd Grand Prix start today. Alongside him, Heikki Kovalainen. He won in Hungary from 2nd on the grid. He has to win today, both for Hamilton and the McLaren team. Through to row 2, Mark Webber and Sebastian Bourdais, 2 Toro Rossos in the top 4. Rosberg looks strong in the Williams. Felipe Massa will challenge Kovalainen for the victory. Trulli and Alonso are on row 4. Row 5, Timo Glock, who's been very quick in the wet, and Nick Heidfeld in the BMW. Kubica didn't get it together. That's Force India's best quality of the year, Fisichella in 12th. David Coulthard's 13th. Then it's Raikkonen ahead of Hamilton. 14th and 15th. There'll be fun and games there. Barrichello the fastest of the Hondas. Then it's Piquet and Nakajima on row 9. And Jenson Button at the back of the grid alongside Adrian Sutil.
When I was a child, I was dreaming one day, to drive one of these fast cars and not even thinking of being part of them really. And now, for tomorrow I'm starting on pole position, so it's fantastic.
I think still the guys behind, they can do a strong race, but for sure I'm in a good position now. I think in any kind of condition, we should be strong.
I'm not sure what the weather's going to do, but we're in a good position to at least start from there. And obviously visibility is an issue, so if we can get cleanly away, don't know if they're going to use the safety car for the start. A lot of things, obviously, we've got to open the curtains up with interest in the morning, but generally qualifying went pretty well for us, yeah.
With the balance I had, it wasn't really feeling very good, and I was struggling out there. It was very tricky. You couldn't really see much, so picking out the braking points was pretty tough. And and again, I missed the good window to get a lap in.
It's all I know now with the benefit of hindsight, of course, but have you been able to make any more sense of Lewis going out on those intermediates in Q2? An outrageous gamble.
To be honest with you, I don't have any understand that myself. I think it was a situation where maybe they had confidence at the end of the first session. They felt the conditions maybe warranted the intermediate tyre. When they got out there, clearly it wasn't. And it also looked like maybe it just knocked a little bit of confidence out of Lewis because he couldn't get that grip built up in the car, and not the normal Lewis Hamilton who we expect to see, because normally when he's in wet conditions, he's awesome.
And this rain gives him a chance, but what sort of problem might Kimi Raikkonen pose immediately ahead of him?
It could be a big problem for him, but saying that, Ferrari is a little bit worse off in the wet conditions and not quite on the same pace. You can see the McLaren's capable of doing a good time. Kovalainen sits on the front row. But the bigger problem will be visibility, and also talking about the fuel limits. These guys at the back have got flexibility. What do they go into before the race starts? Looking up at the weather to extend their first window.
We hear that Felipe Massa in the other Ferrari has had an engine change, which he's entitled to do. They get one free engine change without penalty each season. Clever move.
Yeah, in many ways it's a clever move because he's got a fresh engine here for this circuit. A lot of flat out straights here. It's under a lot of load, and they've had the problem before with Raikkonen and Massa with engine blow up. So yeah, very good.
But it's Toro Rosso on pole position, and really Toro Rosso have been threatening this kind of performance for quite some time. They had both drivers in the points at Spa last weekend, and now here at Monza with the Ferrari engine in the back of the car, Sebastian Vettel has taken pole position itself, and now all it needs is a podium finish or maybe even race victory, and the rise of Toro Rosso is just about complete.
It was a raucous but pretty natural reaction from a driver and a team who just made a little bit of history. Sebastian Vettel's an optimist by nature, but even he didn't really think pole was a realistic aim.
I was joking with my engineers early on this morning, and I said when it rains we have to go for pole position, because after free practice 3, so after this morning's practice, I felt very, very confident with the car under these conditions. And I said, we have to push, we have to go for pole position. And, it was a dream, and now it's a dream coming true.
It's also evidence that the team's come a long way since the end of 2006, when perennial tail-end Charlies Minardi were bought by Red Bull.
It's just amazing for me. Experience 10 years with not very good results, but we never thought that we were a bunch of idiots. We thought that we just need a bit more money to invest. And anyway, today is just a fantastic day, and today is just for the statistic and for give such a good motivation. And tomorrow is more important.
Vettel wasn't the only Sebastian celebrating after qualifying. Teammate Bourdais recorded a career-best 4th, and that was a welcome tonic after losing a podium place on the final lap in Belgium.
Yeah, it's the worst conditions, everybody knows I'm riding for my seat for next year, and I don't know, you're 4th, you're 5th, or even, I don't know, I don't even know which position I was because some guy split it in front of me. And you know, you're touching it, and it's the last lap, it's the last few corners, and you know, there's one thing you can do, it's just crash the car or lose it, and you can lose it any second because you don't even know how much water there is in the next corner, and it's just frustrating. It was a great weekend. It's just so bad it finishes like that, you know.
With his contract as yet unsigned for 2009, Bordet knows he needs to deliver today, whatever happens.
He can never know. I mean, will it be dry? Will it be wet? You know, will you take a good start or not? It's a tricky first corner here, but you know, starting up front is never a bad thing.
Inevitably, the spotlight today will be on the man starting right at the front, but Vettel and the team admit it'll be tough for Formula One's youngest ever pole sitter to become Formula One's youngest ever winner.
Capacity and fuel on board will play an issue. Clearly, we are on the light side. We'll see how we can manage, if we can go away or we stay with the pack.
It's a long race tomorrow, tough day. We don't know about the weather conditions, so if we can score some points would be great. Thinking about winning the race or finishing on the podium. For sure we'll have some good dreams tonight, but we will see tomorrow. It's a long and tough day.
Well, Gerhard, a perfect start to the weekend so far, pole position, but it's all about translating that into result today. Is a dream of a win just a dream?
Well, that's just a dream, yes. I have to say we did a great job yesterday. Obviously the weather came a bit out in our direction too. The weather now seems very similar to yesterday, so I think we have a good chance. But between starting out of pole and winning a race or being on the podium, long way to go.
But you have nonetheless made huge strides this season. You know, you're right up there at the front. You're beating your sister team. How are you doing it?
It's not a question to beat the sister team. The sister team sometimes is better than us, and sometimes we have a better performance. I think we are here to beat all the others. And yesterday we could do it thanks to a great, quick car. We understand the car more and more, and the car is really competitive, and so everything looks running well for us.
Finally, quick word about Bordet. What are his chances of keeping his seat for next year?
Well, he's doing a good job the last two races, and yesterday again, so let's see, but I think he's in a good position.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Clever tactic from Gerhard Berger, seemingly completely writing off any thoughts of a Toro Rosso victory here this afternoon. Other people feel different in conditions that remain at best damp and possibly wet for this Italian Grand Prix, and certainly Lewis Hamilton would give an awful lot for Sebastian Vettel's pole position, but it wasn't to be. That bad tyre choice cost him dear, and it meant yesterday he failed to make final qualifying for the first time in his career. And this is what the World Championship leader had to say yesterday evening.
It's just one of those days where you think, what was I thinking? And myself and my engineer made a decision. We chose the wrong tyre, which meant we had to come in straight away and make the right decision. And when I went back out, I didn't actually realise. I mean, I knew I was struggling out there for grip, but they've analysed it and they found that my rear brakes, because they were so cold, they weren't really working. So that answered why I couldn't really get the car stopped. And when that happens, you struggle to get the heat into the tyres. So I lost a lot of temperature in my tyres, and therefore I was just tiptoeing around with not really that much grip. So I would just want to get around on the first couple of laps, because if I know once I get around the first couple of laps, I'll be able to challenge the guys ahead of me, and I have a very competitive car, as Heikki showed, so I'll be able to work my way up step by step.
And I know there are so many aspects of last weekend that you can't talk about and we don't want to ask you about, but everyone is talking about the racing that we saw. How long did that exhilaration that you felt from being involved in a race of that excitement and standard, I mean, how long did that exhilaration last for you?
Well, normally I think it would have lasted a long time, but then obviously when you have stuff like what happened go on, it just kind of puts a damper on everything. But you just got to try and keep your head up, and at the end of the day, I was just so happy with the job that I did. You know, I never gave up the whole way through the race. I never gave up. At one point I thought, no, this is not really going to, you know, realistically, I'm not really going to be able to get past Kimi. There's only a few laps left. But I never gave up. I still kept pushing. And, you know, the heavens opened and the opportunity came and I took it. And I just felt so satisfied. So the whole week I felt satisfied about it and felt like I won. I think everyone enjoyed it and I enjoyed it. And the team felt great. You know, we're just going to work on making sure we can do many more of those.
And then came today. You wouldn't want the sport to be dull and predictable, would you?
Definitely not. But I mean, I think the grid looks pretty exciting. You know, you've never seen these guys. It's kind of flipped a little bit. You know, you got me and Kimi at the back, and Felipe's a little bit down as well. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to prepare myself, and we'll wait and see.
Well, that was Lewis Hamilton yesterday evening. What kind of race has he got to drive in World Championship terms, Mark? And is Felipe Massa here going to figure in his thoughts during the course of the race very much?
I don't think he's going to figure in his thoughts, to be honest. He's going to have enough on his hands with the conditions. He's got to drive sensibly because he doesn't want to put himself at risk. He has to make sure he collects points. They're going to be valuable points now. With that only 2-point spread, yes, it's important what this guy does, but it's very important that Lewis collects points.
Massa with an engine change, you think he might be on a one-stopper as well?
I think there's a possibility of that, and I think they may have put the fuel in yesterday in that top 10 qualifying to make sure they've got the flexibility. But, you know, more than anything, Steve, it's going to be visibility issues for these guys. And if they do make a move, they're going to make sure it sticks. And we've seen so many other races go on so far, lots of problems.
Well, Ferrari is one of the teams that hasn't featured in David Coulthard's 14-year Formula One career. He's been talking to Louise Goodman about his career that comes to an end this season, of course, about the teams that he's driven for and the teams that have helped him win 13 Grand Prix victories. He talked yesterday about his early years in Formula One at Williams, and he can tell us a little bit more today about his time at McLaren.
You didn't obviously win the championship with them, but you did get a lot of race victories with them. Do you have any particular favourites?
I think Monaco is obviously a special race to win, and you know, at the risk of sounding like old boy looking back with rose-coloured spectacles, but
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, the challenge of Monaco in those early years was so much more than it is today, because the swimming pool was completely closed, the chicane wasn't open, Rascasse was much tighter. It definitely one of the highlights of my career to have won there twice.
I guess one of the most memorable races that you didn't win was Australia in '98 when you handed the victory over to your teammate Mika Häkkinen. Have you come to regret that since?
I don't regret honouring the agreement, and you know, I don't want to appear holier than thou, but if you shake hands on something and you agree to a certain circumstance, it may work for you on some occasions, it may work against you, but I think you have to stick to it. And I know not everyone would necessarily share that view, especially when it comes to sport, and people would think, well, it's a win at all costs. Well, I don't agree with that. Bottom line is, I need a team to be a Grand Prix driver, and if the team present an option to you, and it's presented to your teammate as well, and you have a fair play of running to the first corner, then it's very difficult to go against it.
Mika had a very close relationship with Ron. Now, Alonso was very damning of Lewis Hamilton's, or Ron's favouritism, what his perceived favouritism of Lewis Hamilton within the team. Because of that close bond that Ron and Mika had, do you feel that you missed out, that he did get favourable treatment?
I don't doubt that the car and all of the machinery that was presented to me was equal. I don't doubt that at all, but it's a situation that, unless you're in that position, it's very difficult to understand and appreciate why you might feel that someone is getting some sort of psychological edge or some sort of extra support. And I spent several seasons discussing that with Ron and trying to get him to see my point of view. It was, I must confess, not amusing, but it was, and satisfying would be the wrong word as well, but sorry, my English is not good enough to find the right word right now, that when Alonso was explaining some of the difficulties he had in just understanding how equal everything was, I did have a wry smile, because I understand what it's like to just not be 100% sure. And, you know, people may think, well, you're just paranoid, or you're not strong enough, or you're this, but, you know, and I say this with the greatest respect for Ron and the company he has, but when the team principal walks into the debrief, sits down on the other side of the table and starts talking about what are we doing, and then says what are they doing, and points across the table, and I'm looking around thinking, I guess I'm they, then it does make you wonder, you know, just exactly what your position is. But bottom line is, I spent 9 years there. I won 12 of my Grand Prix with McLaren, and once I got over that particular hurdle, largely it was an enjoyable part of my career.
The voice of experience of David Coulthard, and when David Coulthard was making his Formula One debut, Sebastian Vettel here behind us, who will shortly be heading to pole position for this Italian Grand Prix, was just 7 years old. He might need a little bit of experience this afternoon, though.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay. I think it's been very interesting just watching the guys in the wet conditions. It really shows up a driver's skills, and Bourdais and Vettel in the Toro Rosso have been very competitive. So these conditions really playing into their hands.
Yeah, and the conditions getting worse by the minute. The rain is coming down heavier, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's going to be difficult for the guys now to start thinking about intermediate or full wet. I would have said 5 minutes ago they probably would have said intermediate and gambled, but now it looks like the wet is the only option.
How much raw talent is there with this 21-year-old on pole position?
A big amount of talent, Steve. He's come through the ranks very quickly. He's been well looked after by the Red Bull organisation. They spotted him very early on in his career. And already he's only done a few Grand Prix. He's making a big name for himself. He's got a huge future. Depends where he goes next year with Red Bull, because if Red Bull don't develop their car, it's going to stifle his career.
Fantastic personality as well. His teammate Sebastian Bourdais has just gone out. He's on row 2. We saw all his emotion at the end of that Belgian Grand Prix. A big weekend for him as well.
A massive weekend. He's under a lot of pressure trying to retain his seat. He comes with a huge pedigree from IndyCar racing in America, multi-champion. He's had a tough season in Formula 1, but he's just about getting on top of it now and showing his potential.
The advantage that Vettel will have, and also Kovalainen alongside him on that front row, no spray, at least for the first couple of laps.
That's right, but they've also got to be the guys with the best judgment, making sure they find that grip, because they're the first ones to arrive at the corner.
So the youngest driver in the history of Formula 1 to take pole position heads out to P1 here at Monza, and will be out on that grid with him and with Martin Brundle in just a few minutes' time. We'll also have the ITV F1 competition, and as the rain falls heavier around the circuit, we will discuss a little bit more about the prospects that lie ahead of this potentially very mixed up Italian Grand Prix. Richard Branson among the celebrities on the grid, trying to keep dry, because a wet race is a very rare thing here for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, but we're certainly going to get one today, and that's going to be the task that lies ahead of Sebastian Vettel, 21 years old, the youngest driver to claim pole position for a Formula 1 Grand Prix. We all know the kind of extra entertainment that the rainy conditions provided at Spa. It's not entertainment potential here that is concerning these teams at the moment. It's tyre choice, and we're getting beyond the point mark where they're going to gamble.
Yeah, I mean, these are very important laps now for Massa, just to run out an exploration lap, just to understand what grip he's got. He's going to be thinking like he knows he's got a car which is not the greatest in the rain, and he's just trying to see what level he can push to without putting himself in any danger of being off the road. And we've seen Massa actually struggle. Remember Silverstone, 5 spins he had during that Grand Prix, similar conditions.
And the important thing, there's an illustration. But the important thing for all these drivers, and one would think Lewis Hamilton in particular, way back there at 15th, he's just to survive these opening laps.
Yeah, very much so. And you just saw Massa just have a little trip there, and that's only at half speed rate. Basically, he's not really got any heat into the tyre. Just watch him come down here, gets onto the brakes, just steps out the line. Very lucky that he doesn't actually come off the road and spear the barrier there, and that's a major concern. That's going to knock his confidence, Steve. It's not going to be easy.
Are you looking forward to this first lap with eager anticipation?
I am indeed, and I'm going to position myself to get a good view. This is really going to be a great Grand Prix.
Everyone else is feeling the same, but what a challenge for the drivers here at Monza. Well, we'll get down to Martin Brundle on that grid very shortly, but all the information and all the background to the sport, and there's an awful lot going on, you can get through the ITV F1 website. It's where we also welcome your opinions on Formula 1 issues as well. And it's where you can get all the information you need on the ITV F1 competition.
This weekend is your chance to win a trip to the Spanish Grand Prix from the 8th to the 11th of May 2009. You'll get to enjoy one of Europe's most exciting Formula 1 races and experience the bars of Barcelona's bars and beaches during the Grand Prix weekend. You and a friend will have a return flight, 3 nights accommodation in a 4-star hotel with breakfast and transfers whilst you're in Spain. You'll also have general admission tickets for the Saturday and Sunday to enjoy the fantastic Spanish Grand Prix at the Circuit de Catalunya. To be in with a chance of winning this prize, you'll need to answer this question correctly. Kimi Räikkönen won this year's Spanish Grand Prix, but which team does he drive for? Is it A, McLaren, B, Ferrari, or C, Renault? To enter, call 09049 596789 Calls cost £1 from a BT landline. Calls from other networks may be higher and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or text the word F1 and your answer A, B or C to 63337. Text costs £1 plus one standard network rate message. Digital, satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing their red button now. You can also enter for free at itv.com until 5 p.m. on Friday the 19th of September. Entrants must be 18 or over and phone lines close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 16th of September. Entries made after closing time won't be counted but may still be charged.
Yeah, down here with Ferrari's Mario Almondo. How's everything looking after Felipe's engine change?
We simply had we had a doubt. Since we had the possibility to play the Joker, we did it. That's normal. The Joker is made to be played like that in this sort of situation.
How should the cars go in this changeable conditions?
We hope that we did the right decision, and we will see, because it's a lottery today for everyone. Tires, the changing condition, something that we have just wait and see what's going to happen.
Interesting that they made the engine change after qualifying.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Leaves it a little bit wide open for other people to do that later in the season. But these conditions really are quite bad for the drivers. There's a lot of decision-making still to be done on the grid there, especially the guys at the back of the grid, Steve.
Fernando Alonso there, who won this race from pole position in 07, and he might be thinking in terms of podium or even race victory today.
Very much so. They give opportunity for a lot of the guys, and some of the faults with the car get hidden, and some of the drivers can make a bigger amount of input into their result today. So, these kind of days do open up advantages and disadvantages for many.
Max Mosley and Bernie Eccleston making their way onto the grid. And Bernie with his usual white shirt, resplendent, but with umbrella protection today. And Timo Glock there in the Toyota, who will start on row 5 alongside Nick Heidfeld. And let's go down onto the grid and join Louise.
Yeah, down here on the grid with DC, it's raining pretty heavily down here. David, what were the conditions like on the way to the grid? We saw a few guys having a bit of a moment.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of anticipation as to whether we should be going on the intermediate or the full wet. For me, it's quite clear it's the full wet, and as the rain came down a bit heavier there, then the spray at this end of the grid is going to be terrible, so we need to consider a safety car start, which I know there'll be people saying, how can that be when there's not standing water on the road? But when you come down out of Lesmo to Ascari, with the trees, the way they hang over the circuit, the spray just doesn't lift. So you literally can't see the nose of your car.
Who makes that decision?
We'll obviously give Charlie some pointers, but ultimately I believe it's the race director, Charlie Whiting, who makes the decision.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
And you feel we're getting close to safety car conditions, Mark?
I think maybe there'll be a little bit longer before that decision gets made. I think there's the grip out there. It's just a problem of laying water, and laying water doesn't go with a Grand Prix car by any means.
And there's Alan Donnelly, one of the chief stewards, with Max Mosley, who probably has a certain influence over decisions as well. And the stewards and the role of the steward, should they be part-time, should they be full-time, should they be professional, should they be rather better qualified? It's a hot topic at the moment. They're going to have their work cut out today, the stewards.
I think there's a lot of work there, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the outcome of this race. But that's actually Mateschitz. He's the guy who owns Red Bull and put a lot of support into Grand Prix racing over the last few years.
If it is a safety car, who does it favour?
Well, I think actually a safety car doesn't favour anyone in many respects, because at some point the safety car's got to peel off, and all of the guys have got to get hard on it and try and see what grip level they got. All it does, a safety car, it drops them down to a low road speed, because that's all that car can achieve, and those guys actually can't get any grip into the tyres. So it's a bit catch-22.
But a safety car means at least surviving the first laps, which is good for Lewis.
Yes, in many ways. But as I say, after that safety car peels off, they're still back to racing at full speeds. And in some ways, that tyre temperature may have dropped out. And that's critical for these guys in these conditions.
OK, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Force India. Went up to Q2 for the first time in qualifying this season. Good performance for the team. And who'd have thought that we'd have had a Force India in front of Lewis Hamilton at the end of qualifying yesterday. But that's what we've got, this extraordinary mixed up grid for the Italian Grand Prix. And I think we can go down to Martin right now.
You can indeed. It's raining quite hard. I've just spoken to Ben Mailander, who's the safety car driver, and I said, look, have they told you yet if they're going to use you? He said, no, it's getting critical, it's getting close, but right now no decision on that. But the GP2 race yesterday, they started behind the safety car. And interesting, I think it was actually more dangerous because they peel off after the first lap. The lead driver then controls the pack, but they let go from down at Parabolica and they come across the start-finish line at full speed. So actually when they arrive at turn 1, they're going much faster than if they started here from the grid. And we saw quite a big accident when that happened. Now, I don't think we're going to be too welcome in a lot of these places today because it's really quite critical now. Of course, it's going to be the full wet tyre, but remember, they only have 3 sets of these tyres for the whole weekend. There isn't a car on this grid that's got a brand new set of tyres, and they've got to get through the Grand Prix yet this afternoon. So tyre usage is going to be absolutely critical. We've seen how slippery it is as they go out onto the track, and I'm expecting trouble in the pit lane too. It's very shiny surface there, and I can well see them struggling as they try to stop or try to get away. Big deputation coming on the grid here. Don't know if there's anybody in there we want to talk to. Sebastian Vettel is off the grid for a comfort break. I wanted to have a quick, well, let's see if we can find, let's go this way because there's a right scrabble here. What on earth is going on? Can you imagine being a driver sitting here? And can you imagine sitting here waiting to start a Grand Prix, looking at this lot going on? I don't know where's Heikki? Is Heikki on the grid?
No.
Mark, can we have a quick word with you? What can you tell us about track conditions and tyre options?
Sorry, interference on the radio. Track conditions are very poor out there. There's a lot of standing water. So I think the tyre choice is going to be fairly easy at the start of the race, to be honest. I mean, the amount of rain that's falling now, so it just creates more standing water, doesn't it?
When will you, I mean, the safety car trundles off with 5 minutes to go. Do you get prior warning if it's definitely going to be a safety car?
No, that's when we find out as well.
Same
the way it is at the moment, I think there's a very good chance that that's what's going to... The safety car will actually stay, and we may well be starting behind the safety car, in which case, as you know, we have to start on the extreme wets anyway. OK, thanks for your help. So that is another key point. They have to start on the extreme wets if it's a safety car start. So Mark then is Heikki Kovalainen's engineer, and I think Kovalainen's going to go to about lap 22. I'd like to talk to Sebastian Bourdais. I'm really not at all sure we're going to get a single driver today, to be honest. And I think he's appearing from somewhere. Gerhard Berger's over here. Let's have a quick word with him meanwhile. And sorry, caught the umbrella. Gerhard, sorry to interrupt. Congratulations, you must be thrilled and worried and all of the emotions all at the same time standing here.
To be honest, I am since long time the first time I get nervous. It's a fantastic to be here on this on the front of the grid, but the conditions are good for us, but very risky, and so let's see if we can fulfill the expectations.
All right, so you've got 2 young drivers on the grid here with Toro Rosso, a car obviously built in Milton Keynes back in the UK where we're talking to at the moment, but you've done a fantastic job with it. What can you tell the young drivers to help them out in these conditions? Anything?
Stay on the road. Well, I mean, you know yourself, it's very difficult to make big speeches, but I mean, stay on the road, be lucky on the safety car if it comes out, and just keep going. I mean, it's not much you can tell them. I mean, it's the good thing is it's not too much water on the road at the moment, so you are fine with aquaplaning. So all what it is slippery, so it's all about car control.
I wouldn't want to be on the grid today, would you?
Well, it can be fun, and I have to say, as you said before, we have a very good car in the dry, but also in the wet. So I think it's a good chance for a team like us.
All right, well, good luck. It's going to be a fantastic race, got all the ingredients. I don't know if I can have a quick word with Sebastian. Can we have a quick word, Sebastian? It's getting a bit late, isn't it? Well, good luck and well done on the grid. I think we're going to struggle. Oh, it's Mr. Ecclestone. Bernard, this should be a cracker, shouldn't it? I could do with your umbrella for a minute, to be honest. I'm getting wet.
Really, great. I mean, how they organise this weather like this, magic, isn't it?
This is the 4th wet Grand Prix in Italian Grand Prix since the 1950s or something like that. It's incredible.
85 was the last time it was like this.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, OK, so what are you expecting? I mean, the boys are coming through from the back. Massa seemed a bit steady on the brake pedal in qualifying.
I'd be surprised if they do come through from the back, to be honest with you. I didn't see why they should. It'd be nice to see the guy in pole win the race. It's the first time I'd like to see a pole guy win.
Now, I tell you what, there's going to be, all of this lot are going to cross a chicane at some point today. That's going to be busy after last weekend, isn't it?
Well, the stewards are going to be busy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Well, who do you think's going to? Do you think these boys up front can?
Are you still with ITV?
Well, they haven't fired me yet, but
they should buy you an umbrella.
Thank you, man. I don't know if I think all of the other drivers. Rosberg's got his helmet on. I don't blame them. They've all got to get in the car. We're going to go back to Steve.
Yeah, and here on ITV we don't protect ourselves from the conditions. We try and experience the conditions that are out there, and they're so tough for the drivers from one end of the grid to the other. Jenson Button there right on the back row, looks as if he'll be starting from the pit lane, and we've already mentioned, and Bernie mentioned as well, that the stewards are going to be very busy this afternoon, and a couple of chicanes out there that traditionally are straight lined very regularly. The problem with what we've got left after Spa is that there's a big question mark in the drivers' minds about the oversensitivity of stewards' decisions, and these guys must be allowed to race and overtake.
And they have to be able to race and overtake. That's what it's all about. That's what we watch on a Sunday afternoon. But I think you're going to find a number of people, if they do have a mishap, miss a chicane, they're going to get told to pull back just to make sure that there's some clarification.
Giancarlo Fisichella, as we said earlier, has had a tremendous qualifying performance. He's ahead of Lewis Hamilton. He's on row 6, and he's talking quickly to Louise.
Yeah, it's a big day for the Force India team. The first time they've made it this far up the grid this season. Can you capitalise on that today, and will these weather conditions help or hinder you?
Well, for sure, we like this weather condition. I like this weather condition. It's a better chance for us to score maybe a points or more. Let's see, it's important, the start, the first corner, and it's going to be difficult for the visibility, you know. There is a lot of spray, and it's quite tough on that. Well, I just feel okay. I hope to get to the end of the race and score a point.
It's looking like we're going to start behind the safety car. Do you think that's the right decision?
Yeah, that's the right decision, I think, because otherwise with the spray we can see a lot.
Thanks, Giancarlo. Have a good one.
Ciao.
Yes, Mark, we are getting confirmation now of that safety car start.
Yeah, I mean, that's a situation that they're going to have to deal with, but it's in many ways going to be difficult for the guys at the back there, because they're going to be dropping tyre heat. They're not going to be able to get up to speed as much as they want. Visibility is going to be the biggest issue, and just reference. And I say reference because lots of times you have that in front of you. At these conditions, you have to use a reference to the side. It may be a sign, a tree. You miss it very easily, and you miss your turn in your brake point, and that's the end of your race.
Well, there's the safety car. The race is definitely going to start behind that, and it's absolutely the right decision as the rain starts to come down harder. But what lies ahead is maybe the kind of race every Formula One fan dreams of. A mixed-up grid, wet conditions, championship contenders back in the pack, and all on one of the great circuits in the sport. Final countdown to the Italian Grand Prix is next.